Hey everyone, Kyle Hamrick here for School of Motion, and welcome to this year's first episode of Workflow Show, where we talk about tools, tips, and techniques for motion design and post-production. Today, I am joined by the team from ActionVFX and CreatorVault, who offer all kinds of amazing assets like explosions and energy beams and fire and transitions and mats and glitches and lens flares and tons more great stuff. And we're going to show you quite a few of those today. We'll be talking about the importance of having elements like this in your personal toolkit and of developing the skill set to be able to use them effectively. So that's enough of just me. Let's help me welcome Rodolphe, Caleb, and Zach. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great here. It's really great to have you guys on here today. We've kind of, School of Motion has kind of partnered with you guys before for some giveaways that we've done around the holidays. I know you were partners in the MoGraph meetup at NAB in the past. And I remembered after we talked the other day that I actually had Rose's card in my big like NAB cards. And I think it was at the MoGraph meetup, which like, I was like, I think remember meeting them, but that's crazy.
There was a lot of people there.
Yeah. Can't wait for that to happen again in real life soon. And we also have some of your elements that we use in one of our courses, which is awesome. And we'll kind of mention that a little bit more later. But for people that aren't already familiar with your sites, can you just kind of like quickly let us know what are ActionVFX and CreatorVault? What do you guys offer? What are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so ActionVFX is our main site. It is a visual effects stock footage company. So we basically have different VFX assets that you can use for compositing, things like fires and explosions and smoke and all of that cool stuff to blow things up. But on CreatorVault, we wanted to actually cater to the more general creator, content creator, filmmaker audience. So we have different things such as transitions, lens flares, and different tools like that to just help someone that just wants to make videos, but not necessarily visual effects.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
But we do have a video to show about that because it's always easier to just show something than to talk about what we do.
Totally. I love this format because we can show you all the cool stuff too. So here, I'll play it right now. Awesome. It's some pretty, some great stuff there. And I think the variety of things that you guys have on there is really cool. So obviously we've seen some of the stuff you have to offer. And I know that you guys were generous enough to offer some stuff that we can do as giveaways today as well. So we, at the end of the show today, we're going to be giving away 3 $50 store credits to ActionVFX. So we'll be dropping a link here for a Google form that you can fill out. You just need your name, your YouTube name, and your email, which we're only using so that we can contact you. We're not putting you on a list or anything. So if you want to be eligible for that, fill that out. And I'll probably remind you again later, and then we'll draw those at the end of the show. So I'd love to know a little bit about just kind of how you guys started up. And you know, we've got some fun questions too, but we'll get some of that stuff out of the way here. How did ActionVFX start out?
Yeah, so way back when I was in college in 2011, I started doing YouTube tutorials. I was actually doing them for hit film at the time. And that kind of led to starting a website called readypolis.com. So I did that for a few years and had some tools on there. It was mainly just more basic stuff than what we do now at ActionVFX. For about 4 years into doing that, I really wanted to, okay, it's time to really take it to the next level and try to do something to really go after that professional Hollywood industry of actually doing real effects, real assets, real explosions, and things like that. So that's kind of how the idea for ActionVFX started. We ended up doing a Kickstarter campaign, which a lot of filmmakers and visual effects artists backed, which allowed us to do our initial shoots and stuff. And in June 2016, ActionVFX launched, and the team just kind of kept growing little by little. And now we're about 11 people, which is awesome. So
awesome. Yeah, that makes a good segue to me remembering that we didn't actually do proper introductions because I got all excited to show your video. So let me first say, as you've probably gathered already, obviously we're live, so please feel free to ask us questions in the chat, and we will answer as many as we can. We have Jamie from the ActionVFX team that's in the chat, as well as a couple folks from School of Motion. But let's go around the circle real quick and get a little more idea of who we're talking with today.
Yeah, so I'm Rodolphe Pierre-Louis, and I'm the founder and CEO of ActionVFX. And I do pretty much a lot of different things around here, from leading the team to also just actually doing visual effects stuff, shooting products, and anything that's needed, really.
Awesome.
My name is Caleb Friday, and I am the lead creative specialist. I do a broad range of just filming, MoGraph editing, tutorials, all kinds of things. I also make some products for both companies. So I get a good experience of everything, and I love every day.
I am Zach, so I'm our lead product designer, which means I get to work heavily on the products that we create, both pre-production, planning, and into actually shooting the products, all of the on-set work, and then cleaning those up, editing those, getting those ready for you all, and even VFX shots to show off those products.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And Zach, I've seen it requested in the chat that we have a awesome guitar battle later, so we'll see. That may have to happen after the stream gets turned off.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so back to ActionVFX, which is the original company. We kind of got some idea of how you guys started, how you got to where you are. I know you maybe wanted to brag a little bit about on some of the big stuff, because one thing I think is really cool about a site like yours is, a student could totally have access to the same stuff that might be used in, TV shows that they're watching every week or movies that they've gone to see. And I think that's really cool that kind of stuff is so accessible. So Caleb, I see that on yours here. Let me know if that's good for me, and I can pull it up, and one of you can kind of brag on that for a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead when you're ready.
Boom.
So this is just the bottom of our homepage of the website, if you want to look at it for yourself. But this is our used-in poster portfolio. It's a handful. It's not everything, but it's a bunch of things we're proud of being featured in. Some pretty big name projects, movies, TV shows, even video games. But yeah,
Awesome.
Over the years, we've collected quite a few posters that we're pretty happy about.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot of stuff that I recognize and have watched, and it's always cool to. I feel like it never gets old, seeing your stuff out in public like that. Being able to I don't know, your mom can be excited because she saw the thing that you did. Do you obviously, the thing about visual effects, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is a lot of times if the artist does their job well, you kind of may not even really realize that anything's been done. But I bet you guys probably have the eye for it. You can kind of recognize your stuff sometimes.
Yeah, we can definitely start to notice certain things, especially the more unique clips of certain collections. Like some of the fire stuff has sort of a unique look to a certain shot. And so we definitely tend to notice those things, which is always fun.
Cool.
And then after, you spend hours keying out a clip and make sure it's cleaned out and ready to go. You kind of learn it so well that it's like you could you could do the best job compositing it, and it's just like, nope, I know that explosion. It was freezing when we shot it. It was a hard day.
Nice. I'm definitely later in the show, I hope we have some time to talk about some of those like fun stories of shooting things, and to the extent that you're comfortable, like some of the fun things that we might not realize, like how a thing is made or something like that. Cool. So let's talk for a minute about CreatorVault, and then we're going to have a couple of demos from each of you about not only what some of these assets are, but ways that people can use them. So. CreatorVault, what's the deal there? Why? What's the purpose of it? Why is it a separate brand? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so CreatorVault, we really decided to go with a full separate brand because ActionVFX is very visual effects oriented. It is targeted at the visual effects community, and not everybody is doing compositing and that kind of thing. There's a much larger group of people that need just content creation tools, lens flares, different mats for transitions, and this can fit a much broader group of people. And so we went with a separate brand to help meet that need. And so it's just really targeted at the whole content creation community.
Cool. From looking at it myself, I think that makes a lot of sense because you're probably, not always, but often different people will be looking at those different collections and for different projects and stuff. So it's kind of nice. Like if I need fire and lasers, I kind of know to go here. But if I need transition mats, different place. And I think it helps keep things a little more organized, which is really a big part of this stuff, making these kinds of collections easy to navigate and easy to like wrap your head around so they don't just become a garbage dump is really, really important with this kind of stuff.
No, yeah, like it's hard to go to ActionVFX to look for, like ink drops and stuff. It's like, well, where's the action part of ink drops? So
True. Although I guess you could. There's no rule saying you can't use ink drops in your action film. So
true.
Ooh, it's a good idea.
Yeah, could probably be good for like some energy explosion-y stuff, like speed ramp it and add it like in with some other stuff. I mean, speaking of that's maybe a good segue here for Ro. I know you have a demo that you're going to show us with some fire. Is that right?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm excited for that, and I see some questions coming in. Keep those going. We will kind of pepper those in as they're appropriate, and or kind of grab some of those at the end for the free time we have. Are you ready for me to pull up your screen here?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. Pew, demo time. That looks hot.
Yeah, so I'll be going over how we did this shot for ActionVFX. This is actually was made with our big gas fires collection. This was basically, we have a few ground fire collections, but we wanted to see, hey, how big can we really get these things? And they were
big.
And they were pretty huge. So yeah, I'll just be going over just how we set up this shot and all the different, elements that went into making it. And a lot of the elements that I use for this is actually some of our free elements, which is super cool. You guys can download those too. But obviously, starting with the background plate, you can see that it already has practical lighting flickering on set. And whenever you're compositing fire, that's something you always want to make sure you do, because you can do all the glows, light cast in post, but when you have the real thing happening on set, it's always going to make your job easier, and it's going to look more realistic too. So that was the shot. Obviously the camera was moving, so we did have to track it. Basically just ended up using the 3D camera tracker in After Effects, which was super basic. If you go over,
I just want to hop in and say, I love that you said which was super basic, because like I remember a time when a 3D camera tracker was like a mind-blowing and crazy expensive feature. And then they just put it in After Effects and it's like click, click, and you just wait.
Yeah. I do remember those times. What was it? Buju? I don't know what it was called.
Yeah, it was like $10,000. Yeah.
But yeah, so one thing I always do whenever I work on those shots, and I mean, that's just what you would do anyways, is it's not a great idea to edit a VFX shot in log. As you can see, it's pretty flat here. So you'd have to, convert it to linear or something close like Rec 709. But for this shot, I'm not really using any specific techniques you would use in an actual VFX pipeline, since I'm doing editing it and color grading it and exporting it, this standalone thing. So I just went ahead and did my color grading. That way, as I build the shot, I'm kind of getting a good sense of what it looks like in the final version. That's just something that kind of helped me. So obviously, the first thing to do is to drop or fire footage, which is this layer right here. You can see if I toggle off the color grading, there's quite a bit of dynamic range in there, so you can see a lot of detail in the fire, but obviously something that bright in real life as you're filming it, like, it would be pretty blown out.
Yeah.
And next up is, of course, the glow. And glows, that's one thing that I've been doing this technique for a long time. I've basically rarely messed with the glow effect in After Effects. I just resort to duplicating my fire layer or whatever it is, whether it's a muzzle flash, and simply just adding a ton of blur to it. And that's something I've used a ton, and it always just renders some very realistic results and just makes it look a lot more natural. Of course, I would add like a screen blending mode on that so that it actually blends quite well. So it's like another big way to sell fire footage is going to be light cast. Because if something is this bright, for example, if you look at this corner, it's like there's no way we can have a source of light this bright right next to this area and have it, be this dark. So that's kind of what I did. For these, all I did was basically put on a light orange solid and basically just did a mask. And then I used the blending mode overlay for these layers. And that's basically what helped me do, my light cast. You can see we have some going on at the bottom here and then on the wall also. Since again, if the fire is right next to the wall, there would be a light cast on it. So all that really starts blending things really well into the shot. And next up is when I added the first free element from ActionVFX, which was this burn mark texture. So we have different burn mark textures that we have on the website for free. And these usually are great for, explosion shots, and they're also great for fire shots, just to kind of add, a bit of texture on the ground here. That way everything is not so clean, which is always super cool. And then we have some more free products used. We have a free smoke plumes collection on the website, and I added a few of these, in here, which you can see the smoke here to just kind of add a bit more of that detail. Then there was some light cast in the smoke as well, because again, I figured if you have a light source this bright, then of course it's going to cast some light onto the smoke, so it wouldn't really be that dark. So this is before and after the light cast on the smoke. So again, free smoke plumes on ActionVFX. You can go ahead and download these. We'll drop a link in the description if we haven't already.
There's enough people dropping links. I bet we'll probably have it momentarily if we don't yet.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of links. And then did a reflection for this fire because the ground was pretty shiny. And that's really the whole thing whenever I'm compositing a shot, is because the goal is you're trying to make everything interact as real, close to real life as possible. You know, that's the same mentality behind the light cast and the reflections. Because at first, when you watch the shot, it lasts for 4 seconds. You're probably not going to pay attention, but it's there and it's going to just mesh better in the audience's, you know, eyes when they watch it, which is always...
Yeah, they may not realize that things are missing, but people know, especially when trying to replicate a real world phenomenon, they know that it doesn't look right, and it just looks fakey. So,
yep. And so next up was, of course, heat distortion, which that's always going to be super helpful for fires because, you know, you have just the heat and just having the different heat waves and stuff. So I have a couple layers of that. One of them is more closely around the fire. And then I had an overall distortion that just kind of affected the whole scene a little bit more. Not sure if you can really see in this area as...
Here, I'll full screen for a second so we can kind of see it just a little bit better. Like that little bit of dirt on the lens too.
Yeah, so it's like these are the things that are really going to elevate, just add those little extra details that make the shot look better. And yeah, so finally the last thing was adding some lens dirt elements. These are from our free lens dirt collection on ActionVFX. And that's something, you know, you'll probably see this used quite a bit in visual effects shots. But, you know, when you use it subtly enough, it just kind of adds the sense that the light from your scene is, you know, interacting with the lens that you're filming the shot with, which it's easy to overdo it and just do too much of it where it becomes distracting. But if you just do just enough, then that's just kind of like one of those elements that just kind of helps everything blend together. So that's kind of everything that went into making the shot happen. And as you can see here, that's the final result. And all I did was use one main ActionVFX element and then a bunch of our free products to make it happen. So
awesome. I think that was a really great breakdown. I love how you went through it kind of layer by layer. And people who haven't done this kind of stuff, I don't think they think about or appreciate how much of it is you're sort of working so hard and layering a bunch of stuff together so to replicate you know, a real world thing. And there's so much of it that is kind of based on being really observant about what this stuff should look like and just all those little kisses of details to make it look just right.
Yeah, and if you do your job right enough, no one will notice those details.
Exactly. Which is both awesome and depressing.
Right.
Cool. I think that was great. I'm going to leave this up for a second while we talk, but I think that's a really great, you know, lead into just for people that maybe aren't as familiar with some of these workflows. I want to kind of talk about the difference between, you know, motion design and VFX and compositing, just some of these terms that we're going to be throwing around here. So let me know if I need to pull that back up for anything while we talk, but let me know if one of you wants to take this. I feel like I came up with a pretty good distinction between like motion design and VFX. But any of you want to take a stab at that? It's okay if the answer is no.
You go first.
Okay, so I feel like it's very blurry, and the line between them is soft and wavy. But in general, I think VFX is when you are adding computer-generated elements to footage, can be totally whatever. Anyway, to make something that looks real, even if it's obviously like a fantasy phenomenon that can't exist. Whereas motion design, even if it uses a lot of real-world elements, is something that like is clearly animated. It kind of calls attention to itself as being like a designed animated thing. And, you know, I don't know if you need to make that distinction, but just in case anyone's like new to this and, you know, they're confused about those. And then compositing as a term, I bet one of you can probably handle that. Just like a definition of compositing and like as a skill set.
Yeah, I mean, compositing is just a lot of the actual act of adding those elements into a scene. Contains things like tracking, masking, rotoscope, keying, just all sorts of different tools that are used to do that, even to like the 3D camera track that Roy used to get real space and see that parallax between things. But yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into compositing.
Yeah. And certainly people can specialize in any of these things that we've mentioned. But there's also, people can be a generalist and kind of know a little bit of all these. I personally think it's really important, maybe because I'm a little older and I came from a time when you could just be like an After Effects person and kind of did have to know a little bit of all this. But I think it's really important for like a motion designer who's maybe very design focused to know some of this compositing workflow and know how to handle green screen footage and at least know how to have those like skills of observation to kind of go through the kind of stuff that we just saw in Ro's demo, like layering things up until you kind of hit that right blend of just enough and not too much. And on the flip side, obviously, even if you're like a filmmaker that just wants to add some special effects, like you might still need to make a nice looking title sequence or whatever too, which is, pretty solidly motion design probably.
Yeah, it's like, because one thing that I've definitely found super helpful in my, career especially is it's just good to know as much as possible about whatever field that you're in. It's like, especially as you're starting out, because that's going to give you just a bigger perspective. Like you can see things from different angles, which is super helpful. If all you know is, okay, I can shoot, it's like, sure, that, hey, if you can just be a great cinematographer, that's good. But if you, have some basic editing knowledge, for example, then you can use that with knowing, oh, I need to capture this much coverage while I'm on set because I understand how editing works. And I feel like it's kind of the same way when it comes to, visual effects, motion design, because, sometimes I will have to create like a title for something and I will use, flying embers and fires and kind of some of the same things you would do in compositing, because they all kind of go together. So I'm a big fan of learning as much as you can about the different areas, especially as you're starting out, and then eventually you will be able to specialize. And even when you specialize, the fact that you have a good background knowledge is going to help you do a better job anyway. So
yeah. And probably generally be more employable too.
Oh, for sure.
I can tell you when I first started ActionVFX, I was definitely more MoGraph heavy, but I've learned a lot of VFX things, especially from these two guys. And they've come in so handy in my MoGraph workflows as well. Like I'm better at tracking, I'm better at compositing. Like even if I'm sure a lot of motion designers do a lot of blending, but it may not always be in After Effects. Maybe you're good in Photoshop. But there's so many things you can pick up from just reading and watching about VFX tips. And I'll tell you another thing is I would try to, before I worked here, I would try to do a lot more creating things from scratch that never needed to be created from scratch.
Doing it the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially the stuff on our site, little humble brag. But no, I would, even if I didn't work here, I would still have a new mindset on approaching stock elements, and not even just that, any kind of asset that you can start with and then make it your own in a ton of different ways.
Awesome. I'd love to talk about that some more in just a minute here. I'm gonna take a quick minute and do a little plug because I should. So we'll talk about this later too, but you guys have a bunch of tutorials on your site, which are all free. They're fairly short, which is nice, great for, if you want to kind of like get little bite-sized knowledge bits on how to use specific things. If you, particularly if you are already like an intermediate After Effects user and you want to get more into this compositing VFX workflow, School of Motion does have a course called VFX for Motion. That goes super deep into this, and it's taught by Mark Christensen, who literally wrote several books on this kind of stuff. So it's it's a super great way to just go super deep into this stuff and learn keying and compositing and tracking and match moving and all the kinds of stuff that we've been talking about. Okay, so kind of as part of rolling into that next part of the conversation, Caleb, I know you're going to show us some stuff that is a little bit more MoGraphy, some elements that kind of lend themselves to that part of the workflow.
Yeah, this is a little demonstration of some of our paper products. I think we have a short reel too, but this is, yes, our paper transitions and paper backgrounds from CreatorVault.
Awesome. Here, I'll play this and we'll be able to talk over this.
Sweet. Yeah, so these were shot using stop motion, and they're actually rendered out at 12 frames per second. So we have the backgrounds. They're fully loopable. That's a huge bonus when you're shooting stop motions. Much easier to do stuff like that. Here's our transitions. We made a ton of different styles on those. But yeah, shooting with the stop motion on these was beneficial, like I said, for the looping, but also for getting the kind of detail you want for something like this. For example, like in this slide, you really can't get quite there with video yet in terms of the dynamic range and some of the pixel counts that you can with photos. That's another huge bonus. But yeah, these come with mats, and they're another example of what I was talking about, of how we want to create things that you can get started with, and they will do a lot of jobs by themselves, but you can take them so many different ways using your skill set, your creativity. And so I'm going to do a demo, and it's basically just going to be showing you that aspect of how quick it is to get started with them.
Awesome.
Using these paper elements. But yeah, I'm ready to go with that whenever you want.
There you go.
So I'm in Premiere. This works in any editing software that accepts ProRes files. But so all I have here is two of the backgrounds, paper backgrounds, layered on top of each other. And then we're going to find one of our paper transitions here. Let's do the crumple. And I'm just going to drag over. So we have the matte, which is alpha. And then we have the paper texture itself. So I'm going to drag those right here where you want the edit to be. Put the texture on top, the matte on the bottom. And we're halfway there pretty much. Now we're going to do a track matte key on the second clip that we're cutting to. I'm going to cut it right here. Actually, turn that off first. And then on that track matte, all we do is set it to the matte layer. So that's pretty much how quick it is to get started with our mattes. Play it in real time. Like you saw in that demo, they work with any footage. But yeah, that's just all there is to it. Like I said, in After Effects, it's even faster because you can use your track matte settings right next to your timeline. But we want to make things that, like I said, I'll say it one more time, easy to get started with, and they're part of your workflow, but then you can take it to the next level, however you want to. So this was just one really quick example of how easy it is to get started with some of our stuff.
Totally. And I love stuff like that where I use bits like that in my work all the time. And it's nice when things are, supplied like that, where you've got the matte already built in. And so you can just drop it into Premiere and use it really easily. If you're just smashing two clips together and you want an interesting transition between them. And obviously stuff like that, there are certainly cases where you'd want to go all in and shoot all that stuff yourself, but that's a lot. If you haven't shot stop motion paper before, people probably don't realize how much effort goes into shooting stop motion in general. But having all that stuff just handy, and if you need really specific shapes, sure, get into it and do it yourself. And there's a lot of joy in making your own elements, but most people don't have 3 days and all the equipment and all that stuff to do that. You just need a wiper or whatever.
Yeah. And it's there's no shame in using stock at all, because that's what it's for. At the end of the day, I don't believe the tools necessarily make the artist. I think the tools help the artist, do the work that they need to do. It's like, if you're a great cinematographer, for example, you can shoot something great without a super fancy red camera, right? But if you do have the right camera, maybe that'll helps you do something that you couldn't before. And that's kind of just the same way I see just your toolkit in general, whether that's, with the software that you use, the different plugins, or, assets like stock footage and things like that. There's, in the end, you have a vision. And to me, it's, what's going to help you achieve that vision, in the best way possible, but also in a practical way, because
Right.
in a perfect world, you would have 3 weeks to do every project. But if you have 2 days to do it, then do you really want to go get permits to burn down something when you can just, get something that we already did the hard work for you? So that's how I see
I was
it.
going to say you have a vision, but you also have a deadline and a budget.
Mhm.
And yeah, reality tends to come in a lot, and having like good go-to resources for knowing that you're going to get quality stuff that is, going to be usable. You won't have to do a bunch of work to make the thing work the way you want it to, and that you're going to know how to find it is really huge. And I love that you brought up, permits and stuff like that. Obviously, some of the stuff like fire and explosions and whatever, there's a lot of danger involved and legal concerns and stuff. So, having access to that kinds of stuff without needing to do all of that tough work and dangerous work is huge. And I know that. Sorry, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said for sure. I was agreeing.
I know that I was a freelancer for about 10 years, and time is money anyway, but especially when you're a freelancer, you become very, very aware of that. And it's weird. I think people get ego tied up in this a lot, and they have no problem buying After Effects plugins and stuff, but then they get weird about buying stock elements. And I don't know why there's a disconnect there, because it's very much the same thing. It's a tool to help you do your job better and faster and more easily. And sure, you could spend 4 days making the perfect energy explosion, or you could go buy it for a way less than you're charging per hour to do that work. So it's a pretty easy equation in my mind.
And even one example we like to think about is for quality standards. You look at the highest quality in all these industries, where it's a VFX house, an advertising studio, anywhere you do MoGraph, not one person is doing all aspect of the project.
Right.
It's going to be split up. So if you're freelance doing this on your own, there's no reason you have to do all of that when there's resources like this. So that's one of our mindsets of, if you can't, shoot this, we want to be a part of your team, so that it's the same as working at a higher level studio. And even those high level studios use our stuff anyway. So,
Right.
It's natural.
Cool. And I think one more important note, obviously, one reality of stock elements is that, you're not the only one that has access to it. But that then becomes on the artist to use it in creative ways that, certainly there are times where you can just slap it in there and move on with your life, because that's what's appropriate for that job. And if it's something where you need to make it more unique, that's part of combining a couple different elements or compositing them in interesting ways and changing the color and reversing it. There's all kinds of things you can do to help make it unique while still not having to create everything from scratch. And a lot of times, we saw some great stuff in Ro's demo, all those little kisses and the lens dirt and that kind of stuff. I know Zach's going to show us some stuff about some of the lens flares that you guys have, and that's something that's such a great even a nice lens flare can go such a long way in taking something that's that looks fine, and I don't know, they're that magic little glitter that you can put on the top to really sexy something up at the end. I think we can kind of roll right into that. Did you want me to play the reel first?
That would be great.
All right. Lens flares.
Yeah, so currently we have 5 different lens flare collections. So we've got lens flares for things like weddings and fashion, lens flare transitions, police light lens flares, and even anamorphic lens flares designed to really fit right on top of your footage and real lights in your shot. and we're actually going to demo that here in just a bit. And these are anamorphic clips, so 2K and 5K anamorphic in ProRes, and then the 5K also has the raw red R3D. So that quality is there for you. And we shot these on the Cook special flare anamorphic lenses you can see right there, because we really wanted that top of the line look. I mean, we wanted to provide something that you couldn't just easily go out and do. These are pretty fun collections, and I've got my screen ready when you're good.
There we go.
So this demo I've got here, it uses 3 of the lens flares from the Icon collection. So this is the one that's designed to fit right on top of your footage and really help. Really, it's designed to look real, like you shot it this way. Mm-hmm. And we've got some of those in there that are designed in a way that you can easily track them onto things like this with the headlights. So the raw plate is this guy right here, and I'll just go ahead and add my color correction there for this. Took a similar approach as Row, where I'm just doing color correction, color grading, all of that just right in one clip where I'm doing it all myself. And then it's as easy as tracking, just doing the point tracker for the left and right headlights. So I've got a track here, and those you can see just run throughout the clip with the headlights. And then we've got our lens flares. So this is one single lens flare here, and you can see I've just pre-comped it. I have put a mask around it just to make it so that it doesn't hit the edges any. I mean, it is a lens flare. It is going to be hitting that edge if we do. There's like right up here, it hits the edge just a little bit. So just simply adding a mask, taking that off the edges, that's going to help in the comp. And then we're just using screen blending mode. And right here, just use the pick whip, drag it to your headlight track, and that puts it on there. And so then we've got all 4 lens flares here, and you can see just the lens flares, and they're just tracked right on there with the headlights. And one trick to really blend this and make it just look a little bit better is I went in here to the lens flares themselves, and I added some keyframing to make them start a little dimmer here, get brighter as it gets right where the headlights are pointed at the camera, and then dim back down. And I've also added an expression here just with a wiggle, just to give a little bit of that nice flicker that you're going to get if headlights were bouncing up and down like this and the light is going in and out of your camera lens, just to give it that extra little touch. And that's all it took. I mean, we've even got up here at the top like some nice elements from what would be happening inside the lens and everything. And it's as easy as that. So even for shots where you may not even have to track, but you may have a shot locked off on a tripod with some street lights in it or something, just simply drag and drop these lens flares right over top, and it's just like you shot them.
Awesome. I love how, talking through this, it's such second nature when you've been doing this for a long time, but I try to listen to this stuff with an ear for someone who hasn't, and it's so much of it just boils down to being observant of what it looks like if you were really shooting this and trying to replicate that as closely as possible.
Yeah, and with these being real lens flares, actually shot with real lenses and cameras, they're not computer created or anything. That's already one giant step to help it look much more real. Yeah. And there are things like on the ActionVFX website where we've had to do them CG. Certain things you can't legally do.
Yeah.
Like with
certain, or you can't do with physics.
Or you can't yet. You can't do with physics. Magic effects and stuff.
Right.
Can't. But so there are some CG products, but a lot of our stuff we attempt to do it real and are wanting to do it real first, because that just provides so much more realism because it's real.
I love the flexibility of lens flare packages like what optical flares from Video Copilot, for example. You know, I've been using that for years, but you know, you get all that flexibility, but the thing about using organic clips, I have a nice big library of dust and flares and all these things. Like, you can never quite get the little bit of imperfection of what organic stuff really has, and like you can kind of always feel that difference. And it really does matter if you're trying to make something look really real.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
I definitely like how you put that, because yeah, in the end, it is the imperfections that really just make it seem natural.
Ironically. We spend all this time trying to make it look as perfect as possible, but you want it to be like 98% perfect.
Yeah.
Now everyone puts like VHS filters and
yeah. Cool. Well, wow, we've blown through this. These always go so fast. We probably have about 10 minutes left here. I want to make sure we get through a couple questions, but also wrap up a couple more things. I mentioned this, but I wanted to call out that you guys have tutorials, and not just for After Effects. I noticed you have stuff for Mocha and Nuke and Fusion and Cinema 4D. Anything that I'm missing there?
That would be the main ones that we have. And yeah, they both cover, some of them cover CreatorVault stuff, and then most of them cover ActionVFX, compositing and things like that. So cool. And also I think you mentioned it once, but I'll mention it again. We are giving away $350 store credits for ActionVFX. And there's a link that you guys can go and enter it right now, and we'll announce the 3 winners at the end of the live stream. So if you want to win $50 store credit for ActionVFX, go ahead and do that.
This is probably last call for signing up because we're getting close to the end here. Let's see. I have a couple notes here. Like you said, there's quite a few free assets available, enough to kind of get a taste and get used to the workflow if you're new to this, and you know, kind of get a feel for how these things work. I know you guys mentioned too that you have a feature request page. So if there's something that doesn't exist yet that people want, do you want to throw any more on that?
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Okay, sorry. So the feature request page, we've got a couple of different things you can do there, because we do want to provide, you know, what's needed out there. What do you need? What do you want? And so you can request new items. You can also upvote. So if there's already something created and you want it as well, go ahead and just upvote that so that we can see what is wanted the most and by the most people. And then you can also comment in those things and sort of, you know, give us some details. Tell us why you need it, or what you want to use it in, or you need it to have a certain camera angle or whatnot, and just give us those details on what you need.
Yeah, and crucially, like for a lot of these things, again, you know, yeah, people could go and do all this yourselves, but even requesting something from you, you guys are already set up to shoot, you know, gas explosions and stuff like that. So I feel like even if it's something that you have to shoot new based on a request, you know, you're like 80% there already compared to somebody starting from scratch, probably.
No, yeah, for sure. And that's something we're even still growing our accessibility to do these shoots, because yeah, the faster we can just go from idea to, hey, you know, in a couple of days we're actually doing this thing and getting everything set up, the better it is going to be. And yeah, because at the end of the day, really we got started on user feedback. That's been our whole thing. We want to know what people want, because at the end of the day, you know, sure, we want to have the biggest library ever, but we also want it to be the biggest library that has the right things that people want. And so yeah, like we love listening to our users. We do that a ton. That's just what's been helping us be successful so far. So yeah, if you have any ideas or anything you really need, definitely be sure to let us know on that feature upvote page. So
awesome. I think that feels like a good time for me to ask a couple of the questions that have come in. I know you mentioned some cameras and lenses when you were talking about the lens flares, and I know some of these things are things you guys, keep as trade secrets. But someone asked about some of the cameras that you guys use to record these things.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we shoot on Red. We want to provide that industry standard file, and so we do offer those raw Red R3Ds. But yeah, we shoot everything currently on the Red Gemini. It gives us some good low light performance compared to the other Red cameras, but we're still getting to shoot in 5K, so we have all that resolution to work with.
Which means I, as the person using it later, have all that resolution to work with. And I can make it
Exactly.
really big or really small, whatever I want.
Yeah, like the lens flares, that 5K anamorphic clip, that is huge. So it's 2160 tall, but then it's 5K across. So it's not only going to work for 5K, or it also fits perfectly for like 4K DCI, which is 2160 tall, and works perfectly for the HD and 2K, and it fits all the resolutions from 16:9 aspect ratios all the way up to that 2x anamorphic.
Awesome. Definitely, as someone that has used a lot of this stuff, like that flexibility is so crucial. That I know there's, it's really frustrating when you find the perfect thing and then you buy it and realize like, oh, it's like, this is 720, and I mean, fortunately, we're largely past that these days. But I need it bigger, and now it looks like crap.
Yep.
Here's a fun question that I think I know the answer is no. But is there something equivalent to the Wilhelm scream for stock footage that that might be spotted? I mean, I feel like there's enough places to get this kind of stuff that probably not, but I don't know. Is there any sort of in-joke that maybe comes up a lot like that? Or good lead into one of the coolest places that you guys have spotted your work?
I mean, I feel like, definitely before we started ActionVFX, one of the things that, we all were noticing is, I mean, there are definitely some elements that you could see a ton. Like certain muzzle flashes that it would be super obvious that, oh, I think I've seen that muzzle flash before and stuff.
Yeah.
But, when like a big goal with ActionVFX was to fix that in the way of, not just providing the quality, but the quantity. Like you'll notice we have a lot of volume 2s, on our website. And then I think we have like 17 or 18 different fire collections on our website, and that's like over 1,000 different clips of just fire things. And what that does is, if we can have so many and customize it in different ways, then you won't really be able to just see, oh, I've seen this fire before, because you're not going to memorize 1,000 different fires. So that's kind of the thing we want to do, like competing against ourselves essentially, and just keep flooding the market with great stuff, and hopefully you'll never memorize one enough to see it. So
I feel like maybe kind of back in the day, like a lot of sci-fi original movies from 10 years ago or something. That's a great place to look for, like, oh yeah, I've seen that. They're using the same muzzle flash through the whole movie. Not to bash on the people who made those, but I'm sure the budget constraints and time constraints of those probably like as a great place to look for those kinds of Easter eggs in there.
Yeah. It was actually an honor when we found out we were used in Sharknado 5. It was like, hey, we'll take it.
Man, those things took on a life all their own. And like, I imagine the budgets of those sort of paradoxically probably became like what a real movie would be, because they became so popular, but they were still trying to like ride the line and keep the aesthetic like not super great, but like good enough.
Yeah, cut. That was too good of a scene. That was roll back. That was too good.
A couple good questions that I want to kind of wrap up with here. From someone who's maybe not as familiar with using stock elements, are there any copyright issues if I use these to create ads?
Well, the great thing with with all licensing is it's a commercial license, and once you buy it, you can use it for whatever project you want and for however long you want. So it's a pretty basic license in that sense. So no, go ahead and use away.
Cool. As long as you actually bought it.
Yes. Oh, and as long as you're not using it to give it away some other place.
Right. Yeah. And then I think one good kind of last wrap-up question here. Someone said, I could use some advice on how to organize and browse stock material. That they have a bunch of good stuff, including quite a bit from you guys, but sometimes they have trouble like deciding what to use. Any kind of tips or thoughts on that? I know it's a tough one because a lot of times it is just like, I know I've got, stuff that's like this, and you kind of just have to look through and see. But I don't know, any organizational strategies that any of you use personally?
I mean, it really depends on your shot, which ones to choose from. I'll say that, and we've also seen some really creative uses of our elements that we didn't even think of. So I would mention that as well. Get creative with it. You don't have to use the same ones all over again. But in terms of organization, we actually try to name them on the website so that they'll show up pretty well in your folder system. And then it's up to you to keep your computer organized, I guess.
It's like the way we have it here is because like everyone's hooked up to the NAS, and I think we split it similarly to how we do on the website. For example, we have different folders like a fire folder, a gun effects folder, a blood and gore folder. And then inside of these have then different folders of the different collections. And then inside of these have the different folders of different clips. So it's like, definitely the more you can do that. So that way, if I need some fire clips, you have a fire folder that you can just go and look. So that's one way of doing it. Like it works great for us when we use it with our stuff. Like I know there are some people, like I was meeting with a friend of mine the other day, and they actually split it by a library. So they had like an ActionVFX folder, and then they structured that with their stuff. And then they would have like this other company's assets, I got some things from FilmPack and I'm going to put them here. So yeah, like in the end, there's not one right way, but definitely does need some organization. I know it can be super easy to just download it and leave it on your downloads folder on your computer. But it's one of those things, if you can get into the habit of, as you download something, putting it in its proper place, then that's just going to save you a ton of time down the line.
I think that was pretty much going to be my answer too. Like it's probably a slightly different answer for everyone. Sound effects definitely fall way into this too. Like you kind of have to figure out what organizational strategy works for you and how you think about them. And just spend some time to organize them for yourself in the way that makes sense to your brain. That's what I would say, and that's what I do, I think. So, but yeah, keeping track of stuff. What I do when I download something new, I put it not only in the project file that I'm currently working on, but I also put it in like a central place where I keep elements like that I'll use in the future, and that way I don't have to remember to do it later. And I don't have to, clean out my downloads folder of 50 random downloaded files later. So, cool. Well, good questions there. I think we probably should go ahead and wrap this up. But I know that we have a couple of winners. I believe, Ro, do you have those in front of you?
I do. All right. So we have three winners, and the first one is Scott Fairchild. Woo. Second one is Diane Myers.
Yeah.
And then the third one is Joe Chen.
All right. I gave a different celebration gesture for each one for some reason. I don't know. Felt like making them unique was important. So congrats to you three. Obviously, we have your emails, so they can you can get contacted with those, and you'll have some money to spend on all kinds of exciting fire, explosions, or energy effects, or whatever your little heart desires, right?
Yeah.
Send us whatever you make with them. We love, just as much as we love seeing the big studios, what they do with their stuff, we love seeing what you guys do with their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm sure tag School of Motion in it too. It's great to see. One thing that I really love, and I know obviously, I think all of you make tutorials too. It's awesome when someone comes back and lets you know, like, hey, I learned this thing from you and I used it to make this. It's like such a awesome, satisfying feeling. So never be afraid to tell someone that, I don't know, like, thanks, I guess, but yeah, it's a good feeling. So let people know.
Sure.
Cool. So I have a couple of School of Motion announcements before we wrap up. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say?
Well, I would just say, first of all, thank you for following this presentation with us. And yeah, definitely check out ActionVFX and CreatorVault. As I mentioned multiple times, we do have free products on both sites, so you don't have to pay anything to get started. So yeah, do check them out. And again, always be in contact with us if there's anything you want to see us make. We're always happy to do what the users want at the end of the day. So
awesome. Okay, a couple quick announcements here. These are both public already, but I'll just call attention to it because there's been a lot going on the last week or so. So School of Motion actually just launched a new jobs site called creativecareers.io. We used to have a jobs board, and we've revamped it as this. It's a worldwide resource, not just US, for creatives to search for jobs, and you can sign up for alerts too, and companies can post jobs there. So we just wanted to have a space where people in the industry and related fields, it's not just motion design. There's a lot of related stuff like UX and stuff on here as well. So check that out. And then a really big announcement that we just made about an hour before the stream. I have a really short video that I'm going to play to kind of say it in a more interesting way than I will. So we'll do that real quick. So School of Motion has recently acquired HoldFrame. I see Joey is here in the chat yelling, HoldFrame. If you're not familiar with HoldFrame, it's Joe Donaldson created it a couple years ago as a marketplace where you could get project files from these really high-end, like some of the best projects in the industry from top artists. And now we have teamed up with them, and we're doing what are called HoldFrame workshops, where you can get project files as well as a walkthrough breakdown like workshop from the creators. So you get this really cool real world context. I'm not going to talk about it too much more here. Just want to make sure you were aware of it. We just launched that this morning. So I see there's a link in the chat to find out more. And let's see, we are launching with 2 right now, which is the School of Motion Manifesto by Ordinary Folk, and the 2018 Semi-Permanent Title Sequence by Joyce Ho. And we've got some other ones coming up that are really exciting. Can't say anything about them, of course. But if you want to come back next week, Joey is going to be on here with Joe Donaldson, and they're going to be talking about this and what it means and what you can get from this. So come back next Friday and check that out. So that is it. We are wrapped. We are at 1:03, so we almost made it on time. Awesome. Well, I don't think I have anything else to bring up. So again, if any of you has something that you thought of while I was yapping, please feel free to jump on in here before we go. But thank you guys so much for being on here. I think it was really cool to talk about the different parts of the workflow, and especially for people who maybe haven't done this kind of stuff before, just seeing like the layers involved, but the thought process of this, I think it's so helpful. And like realizing, you can't just take your clip and slap the thing on there. You got to do that, and then think about the lighting, and think about how it affects the rest of the scene, and think about lighting it when you shoot it so that you already have, the effects of that in the footage, but then you still have to add those little bits everywhere else. It's really great just seeing the thought process behind all of that and how you achieve those really cool results.
No, yeah, for sure. And yeah, this was fun. We definitely should do it more often.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. This was great, and you did a super awesome job, Kyle, just setting up everything and making this possible. So
awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on here, and we'll see you back. You being the audience here, we'll see you back here next week when we talk about hold frame. Take care. Be safe out there. Be good to each other, and we'll see you later. Bye, everybody.